What's up, everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today I'm going to be talking about the future of competitive Halo. Now, I don't really play Halo competitively all the time, not so much anymore, that's part of why I'm making this video, but after watching a certain Halo YouTuber's videos, I got this surge of sweat, of competition, this drive to play competitively. So I've been having a great time for the most part, and I wanted to make a video about how Halo 6 can dominate competitive gaming. Oh, but this is a monumental task, and I can't do it alone. So I've brought on someone who's very experienced in this area. The man, the myth, the sweaty legend, Proximitty.
Alright guys, well, my name's Proximitty, as you mentioned earlier. I like to do a lot of competitive stuff on my channel, and I just like to be a total sweat. I love doing that. I do a little tips to help other people get as sweaty as I am. That's not me trying to say that I'm the best by any means, but I just like to sweat a lot. And I also am a part of Chaotix Gaming, which is a community Halo channel that features all sorts of different types of things, including podcasts, top fives, and custom game sessions, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just another fellow Halo YouTuber.
Yeah, guys, so make sure you check out Proximitty and his channel, because he is a fucking beast. Oh. 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 Alright, so let's jump straight into this. Now, all of you watching are probably aware, Halo 5 has made a dramatic leap into the competitive gaming market. Now, I've never really posted any videos on this topic, and I think I've hardly ever talked about it. But competitive Halo is definitely something that needs to be emphasized for the franchise moving forward. You probably already know, but eSports and competitive gaming have been on a big rise in the last 5 or so years. It's a big market that makes a considerable amount of money. In 2015, the global eSports market generated over $325 million. And if Halo is going to be the FPS juggernaut that it once was, it's going to need to have a big part of that. Whether you like or dislike the competitive nature of Halo 5, the competitiveness of the game definitely has a place in esports. Now, if you guys don't know, competitive Halo has been on a steep decline ever since Reach, and Halo 4 and MCC didn't do much to help that. I won't get into the specifics of why those games didn't succeed in the competitive market, so just know that it plays a hand in where we are now. And Halo 5 seems to have brought back competitiveness to the Halo franchise. But here's the thing, can 343 design Halo 6 in a way that has a huge presence in esports, and that appeals to casual social gamers and fans alike? What do you think, Proximitty?
Well, I think what you just mentioned was very accurate about Halo 5 bringing back the competitive, but I think they might have overcompensated and made it a little too competitive. And that's coming from somebody who generally only plays competitive things. I normally am always grinding, just trying to, I don't know, play. I just like playing competitive and in whatever game I'm playing. And I don't really, I don't like playing Infection and things like that. I'm just really not fun in that way. I do enjoy it now and then, but I normally am very focused. And I'm even willing to admit that they might have overcompensated a little bit. And I think what you just mentioned is important, is to make sure that it appeals to casual players as well.
Right, because if you look at Halo 2 was not designed from a competitive standpoint. It was just designed to be a great, fun game. But it was the players that came along and found out about the BXR and all these sorts of, Gandhi hopping, all these, advanced tactics. So the players can take any sort of game and make it competitive if the basics are there. And I think, like you said, 343 did kind of overcompensate a little bit, and as a result, that kind of pushed away the social and casual gamers. So the first question I have is, how should 343 design the game and maps? And I think it's safe to say that all the new movement mechanics will be in Halo 6. But for a lot of people, Halo 5's maps were just disappointing to a lot of fans. The UNSC architecture was prominent in almost all the maps. Even the Warzone map on San Helios had UNSC bases on it. It seems like we just couldn't get away from the UNSC design and how similar it made everything feel. And so I think of like Halo 3's original 11 maps and how diverse, different they were. They were all sorts of different areas that you could imagine yourself in, kind of based off of the campaign and levels in those as well. And they featured all sorts of different colors, landscapes, they were aesthetically pleasing, they played differently, they had man cannons, vehicles, all sorts of things. So my question for you, Proximitty, is do you think 343 should kind of design their maps similar to Halo 3?
I think it's important to make sure that the maps are able to be played in multiple different game types, whether that be 5v5 Slayer for social Slayer and things like that, and other game types including Oddball, King of the Hill, assuming some of those game types would return. But I think what you mentioned about the aesthetics, the UNSC thing is a little overdone. I'll agree with that. I don't think that is a matter, that's not a concern for competitive players. They're more concerned about the layout. The aesthetics, it doesn't matter. They don't have to.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a Covenant map. It could be Promethean map. It could be, Forerunner, UNSC. Nobody cares. So long as it is, it works well for competitive. The map plays well. The spawns are good. The objective points are well placed. People are going to enjoy it for competitive play.
It plays a part in kind of the feeling that players might have of like, oh, it's the same kind of map again,
Yes,
so
and that's what I was about to get to.
Yeah,
For the casual aspect, you 100% you need to diversify a little bit, because for the people that aren't so worried about the win and just enjoy playing, they like to get immersed in like different maps and feel like they're on different planets and different areas. And so as you just mentioned, the game doesn't get stale. And I don't think that's necessary. It's not a deal breaker, I wouldn't say, at least not for me. And I think other games show that. You think of Call of Duty maps, you pretty much have an idea of what it's going to look like. Probably some city that was just part of a battle, has some burning buildings and stuff. All of it looks kind of the same, just rubble everywhere. So I think games can be successful with a similar look, but I think Halo always separated itself from games like that. And I'm not saying that we should be like Call of Duty. So I'm not saying it's a deal breaker.
Right.
I'm not saying that, if you don't do it, it's not going to succeed. But I definitely would like to see it come back, as you were talking about.
I think that would be a really good thing for 343 to do with Halo 6, because then, it all starts casual. And when casual players feel like they're playing the same maps over and over again, that's never been a problem for competitive players. I know you guys will play the same map as much as you want to get, the best tactics and the best understanding of everything. And it's good that Halo 5 kind of returned to its roots that way, with map control and weapon spawns and all that stuff. And I think for the casual audience, they kind of need those diverse environments so that each match feels unique and, just kind of giving us more Forerunner, Covenant architecture, or maybe something even different. I look at the map Tyrant and Molten. Those maps are fucking amazing, and they've got such great backdrops and scenery, and that really makes things fresh for someone like me. And when I play those maps, whether it's competitively or socially, because of the different environments, it switches it up, and now it doesn't feel so redundant.
I can agree, and I think the map Plaza is another one to notice. That one doesn't have any unique architecture within it, but the color and the lighting and the setting of it is so unique. I really enjoy that map. I think it's really neat.
Yeah, I'd agree. And this also kind of plays into the whole remix map design that they've been doing as well. So I think they should probably drop that. I mean, either keep it and have a ton of maps that have their remixes, or just drop it and create 11 or 12 super unique developer-made maps.
I agree. I think my thing with remixes, or that's what they call them, remixes. I don't have a problem with remixes. I think if you want to add those in, great, but don't try to sell it to me as a completely new map. And I know that it's free, and and I understand that. However, I would like, as you just mentioned, either have a lot of those. If you want to do that, if you want to have the regret variant of Truth, which I prefer regret for Slayer and I prefer Truth for Flag, that works. I like that. But then, you still need to have a bunch of really just different maps, as you're mentioning. We don't have something that plays like Guardian or anything like that. Why don't we have a map like that? And I'm not saying you have to have old Halo maps, but I wouldn't mind seeing old maps make a return, modified if you need to be. Things like that, Lockout, Guardian, we don't have a map like that, So a lot of bridges, a lot of places to jump off, stuff like that. Really cool jumps always come out of those sorts of maps, and when you're always enclosed, you kind of lose some of those cool things. I would like to see those
cool strategies. Holy shit, wouldn't a remake of Guardian be fucking incredible? Wow.
that would be sick. Yeah, if they did it, they'd have to adjust it a bunch like they did with Truth and Midship, but I still think it would be worth.
It would be great. Oh yeah, everything. And another big part of this, guys, is that maps need to be designed with the intention that these game modes will be played on them. So, for instance, Guardian, you can play pretty much any game mode on that, except maybe Capture the Flag and Assault. Those game modes probably wouldn't work as well on Guardian. Now, take a look at a map like High Ground. That can work for pretty much anything, except for capture the flag and assault. The variants 1 bomb and 1 assault is what works on that type of map. Same thing with coagulation, Zanzibar, whatever you want to call it. So I think a big point of getting social players into the game is to create maps that are unique, that can be played any sort of different ways, and have all these unique game modes to complement them, as opposed to, you know, the Team Arena playlist, which just has Slayer, Strongholds, and Capture the Flag. Having a competitive Oddball or King of the Hill game mode in the next Halo game would very much increase the variety and likelihood that people are going to keep playing the games, keep grinding, and keep sweating. And so the next thing I want to talk about is the social experience, the casual gamers. And I think because Halo 5 is a game that was severely lacking in casual features and social playlists, that ultimately hurt the population of the game, and in turn the popularity of Halo as an esport. And the reason why this is because everyone starts out as a social gamer, as a casual. With whatever new game they pick it up as a newbie. Everyone starts there, right? So when you have a game like Halo 5 that doesn't have those social Slayer, you know, unranked playlists for casual people, you know, they get turned off because not everyone wants to just grind, you know, compete every time. Even the competitive players, I'm sure, would love to have a social playlist for practice or anything. So my question for you, Proximity, is how should 343 go about appealing to the social and casual gamers so that they're more likely to get invested into the competitive Halo scene?
I would say I think the easiest solution is just throw it straight back to the system they had in Halo 3, which was just 2 separate sets of matchmaking, and you have the unranked and you have ranked. Now there is a hidden ranking system in the social side, so that was based on your overall player rank, which was game experience, you know, time played, things like that. You know, you were matching people of that similar level. So it wasn't truly social, but it was relatively social. You know, you'd still match a wide variety of people, and it got you in games quickly, and then you didn't have to worry about winning or losing. And then you also have that separate side for ranked to kind of, you know, tickle that competitive itch. Or scratch it, I guess. Not tickle it. But yeah, if you want to get into it and you want to start sweating, then you have that option and you can just hop on over there. I think that would be the best way to do it. And as you mentioned, people come in uninterested in competitive, but over time, I mean, that was me. I'm pretty sure everybody who loves playing competitive can probably say the same thing. You know, they didn't start that way, but eventually, you know, they got interested, and especially because I think the majority of social, and I think the focus of social in Halo 5 is Warzone. You know, it's a very different game in Warzone than it is in the arena, and that's not trying to say I'm not trying to intimidate people, but when you come, if you just got on Halo 5, it's your first Halo, and you play a lot of Warzone because that's the thing that's always talked about. It's got all these cool weapons and all these cool bosses to fight and all these cool, you know, variants and power weapons. You know, obviously it's very appealing. But if you start losing interest in that, or maybe looking for something else to do, and you go to the arena and you're dropped in on these maps that you've never played before, and you have starter weapons and you're not getting to use some of the cool things, and you feel very lost and you feel out of your comfort zone, you know, that might turn you off to competitive immediately, and you just paint that black and you never want to go back to that part of Halo. And I think if you had that proper social aspect, you could have people getting into it gradually, and they wouldn't feel so intimidated or belittled, because they could feel more comfortable and just relax a little bit. And so yeah, that's what I think. I think pulling it back to the Halo 3 side of things, I think that would work out really well. And I can't say for sure, obviously, but in my opinion.
I agree with you. And a big thing is, you know, think back to when Halo 5 launched, you know, day one. For the first month, it was all ranked playlists and Warzone. So there really was no true social side. You know, a lot of people, if they didn't like Warzone and they didn't want to compete, then there wasn't much for them in Halo 5. You know, Forge wasn't out, so Halo 6 needs to have these things for casual players on day one, because first impressions are everything, and that will in turn stimulate the health, the revenue that Halo as an esport generates, and make it a dominating force in competitive gaming. All right. Now, would you yourself, Proximity, like a sort of social Slayer playlist that kind of mimics, or a social arena playlist that kind of mimics the competitive playlists, you know, something for you to practice in? Would you like something like that for Halo 5 or Halo 6?
Absolutely. I think that is the entire point of the social playlist. I think all you need to do for that, I mean, most of the work's cut out for you. Just turn off ranks and then copy paste the playlist, and then you can have 6 or 7 ranked. I think there's 6 ranked playlists. You have all those, and then you have your additional ones like Infection, Griffball. We need team snipers. 100% we need team snipers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we need
Multi-team.
social doubles. I think doubles has pretty much always been understood as something that's very competitive. So, it can be fun and just hanging out with your buddy. But for the most part, if you're just getting on with your buddy to just play doubles, you still don't want to lose, So you still have that ranking system, and if you're not trying too hard, then you won't be, you'll end up getting ranked with other people who aren't trying too hard. So I think doubles needs to be ranked, but I definitely think we need team snipers. I don't know where team snipers is. I think we need social FFA. I think we need social. We need an action sack playlist. Action sack's always great. Somewhere to put some of the interesting community made game types and things with the crazy things that we can do with Forge. And I think in Halo 5 we can all agree, regardless of what you think about Halo 5, the Forge is pretty unparalleled. So
pretty much.
Yeah,
I think
games. Yeah, it's great. I really think they should try to if we had an action sack playlist. I know that I used to like going on action sack, and like I said, I've always been someone who's usually very uninterested in things like that. But that was always really cool. Like I remember in Halo Reach there was a skee ball, that little arcade game where you roll the ball up the ramp and try to get it. They had that with the big soccer balls and gravity hammers. And you even had a scoreboard, and they figured all that out in Halo Reach's Forge. It was so cool. It was very creative, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, things like that. I think your social playlist, you just need to have one for every playlist you have ranked. Make another one exactly the same, but social, and then add a few more, as I just mentioned.
Maybe not so much with like SWAT and stuff. They can be kind of different.
Yeah. I guess,
also. Yeah. Can we please bring back Ricochet? That shit as a competitive game mode I would get so into that, dude. It'd be like playing basketball in Halo. Like, Ricochet needs to make a competitive comeback because that is so fun, dude. I will ball out in Ricochet, okay?
Ricochet was a lot of fun. I will say for the pro circuit and things, people weren't really fans, and I can understand why. Some of it was cheeky. Some people could learn some ways to get really like long shots and stuff, so sometimes it played kind of fluky. But I definitely think it would be, even if they don't want to put it in the HCS rotation, great. I definitely do think, I miss Ricochet. I loved it. It was just a fun game type, like it was one that you could be sweaty in, and you could also just mess around and have fun. So I really liked that about it because, I don't know, it's just, Ricochet was fun. I liked it.
Yeah. And so the bottom line of this social stuff we've been talking about, guys, is that it's an integral part of Halo's success and what has always made it so popular in the past. And without this social aspect, Halo loses a lot of its casual audience, and the casual audience is the biggest audience, so they need to appeal to them in Halo 6. Moving on, the ranking system and the loss of Halo's militaristic feeling. This is just something that's kind of bugged me as well. In Halo 5, there's no real military ranks, that to kind of reinforce the feeling that we're Spartans, part of a military program. There's no like private warrant officer, lieutenant general, general grade 4, and stuff like that. And so I wanted to ask you, Proximitty, how do you feel about the sort of ranking system that we have now and how it's no longer really based on the military? Both sides of the ranking system, like Spartan level and competitive rank.
I definitely think I liked the military aspect of the Spartan level, the personal Spartan level more. I think that would be something that I'd be interested to see come back. Just talking on that, I really can't remember too much about that just in Halo 3, other than I do remember some people would like to boast their rank, I'm a general, or, I can't remember all the ones. I remember like brigadier, things like that people always like to say, and I feel like now it's just like I'm a number, so I think the title's cooler. They had different grades, I know Halo Reach had that as well, but at a certain point you start to become like an Eclipse and a Nova and an Inheritor, like you got away from the military ranks. But that was still cool. You still had to go through like warrant officer and things like that. But as far as the competitive side of things, the ranking system in the arena, there's a lot of things that I like about the current one that we have, and there's a few things that I would like to change. And I don't like how they handle the Onyx to Champion system. I think the Bronze to Diamond, they have the levels in between then, so Bronze 1 through 6, and then if you get past Bronze 6, you go up to Silver, and then so on and so forth up until Diamond. And once you get out of Diamond, you go to Onyx. Onyx now introduces a new system where you're ranked based off of your CSR, and you can earn CSR by winning, and you lose CSR by losing. Now, the top 200 people in that playlist with the highest CSR are considered champions, and they have numbers 1 to 200. That's very cool. I think it's cool that they highlight the top 200 in a playlist, And I know
Yeah.
the playlist that I've grinded and got the champion rank, I felt very good about it. It was very cool to think that, hey, I'm the top 200 in this playlist for the season. You know, it resets. So that was very cool. I like that they highlight those things. However, what I don't like is how unattainable champion can become to people who can't play as much as other people. Because if you played for 8 hours and won every single game, you're just going to constantly rack up CSR. And if I didn't play for 8 hours while you did, you're just racking up CSR and I can't keep up. And then whenever I get online, I would have to play the same amount of time. If I were to win every single game, it would still take me 8 hours to get back up to you. And so if you're able to play 4 hours a day and I'm only able to play 3 hours a day, gradually as the season goes on, you're just going to have a clear advantage over me. And so at that point, I don't think it truly defines who's a better player. And I think that's the point of the ranking system. So my proposal to fix that was to keep the bronze to diamond tier the way it is. But then when you get up to Onyx, maybe go back to kind of how Halo 3 did it with a 1 to 50 system. And if 50 is too much, which it probably would be. I don't know how many people are up in the Onyx ranks or anything like that, but
1 to 25.
1 to 25, yeah, exactly. That would be great. So you could do the same way they did in Halo 3, where you earn, your one. So you could be Onyx. Oh, I'm an Onyx 22, and that's how you would just define yourself. So you have to win, a few games, and you could rank up, and then you lose, and then you would match other people who are very close to you in Onyx rank. I think that would be a great reform to the ranking system. I'm pretty happy with it. There's just a few things that I don't like.
I would agree. Also, a big thing, so if they do the system that you're kind of talking about, it'd need a couple changes as well. And one of the things is you've got your competitive rank and your Spartan rank. And I think if we stick with the bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, Onyx champion system, that Halo 6 should go back to having the military ranks as you level up with experience points, outside of competitive. Because then it satisfies that whole military identity that Halo has always had, and that kind of fills that void. And also with the ranking system, if you play shitty, you should be rewarded shitty, right? If you're in Diamond, let's say you somehow got placed in Diamond and maybe you're not supposed to be there. Well, now you can't get out of Diamond. You can only go up, right? So I think the ranking system needs to have a demotion system, because then it's like it's much more tense when you play a game. It's much more competitive. Like you're more afraid to lose if you're at the bottom of, say, a Diamond tier than you are, if you're at the top of Diamond or whatever, because then you can actually go back to Platinum. You can actually get demoted, and I think they need to do something like that in Halo 6 so that ranks are taken more seriously and games truly represent a nice competitive battlefield.
And I can agree with that a lot because, as you mentioned, you can't be demoted. So if you earn your way into Onyx, you are now in Onyx. And most of the time, if you didn't start out the season in Onyx, then you pretty much have no chance of getting champion. So I know that, I've been this way about it before. And some of my friends have. Just if we get into Onyx, and we're in Onyx now, but now we know we're not going to be able to get champion, and well, there's no way we're getting out of Onyx. So no matter what, at the end of the season, we're going to have that Onyx rank. There's not a whole lot of motivation for me there, because when the season ends, I'm still going to have Onyx. But so it doesn't matter to me. I want to win because I'm really just a competitive individual. But
sweat machine.
But if you take that away, there's really nothing for me to lose at that point. Because if I'm unable to catch the champions and I'm unable to go back down with the diamonds, then what's the point? So I can agree with that. I agree with your point. I think that would be good. Add the extra bit of motivation for people to try to get into it, make sure they're trying their best.
Also, I wanted to ask you about the current season system, because a big thing with me is, like, when I first got Halo 5, I was just so hyped to play it competitively. Like, I played a few games and I was really kicking ass in SWAT. I was doing good. Like, I got to the very top of SWAT Onyx, in the first month or so, and then, December rolled around and it was like, now I have to play those placement matches again. The whole monthly season system, it takes away all that sort of hard work someone did, to get to where they are, and to have it reset every month is just, for me, it's pretty discouraging, because it feels like such a short time frame for me to do my placement matches and rank up. And again, it comes back to who plays more, not necessarily who's the best, because you have such a short window of time to get to the rank that you really want. You have to do that in a month. I think 343 did a really good job extending June and July as 2 seasons, and I wonder if maybe they should have like a real season, as in 3 months like normal seasons are, or if they should just have a yearly ranking system, or maybe just you do your placement matches and then you keep going. You never reset your rank, but you can lose rank. What do you think about that kind of idea?
I like the idea of extending the seasons. I do like that they made the season longer, but I wish they would have told us that earlier, because it kind of bombshelled a lot of people, including myself. And I actually made a video on my channel talking about how when this new season drops, I'm going to really grind free-for-alls, because I normally jump playlists. I'll play some Slayer, play some Arena, play some free-for-alls, but I was going to just buckle down and focus free-for-all, that way I could try to get champion. But then they extended the season on me, but I didn't know that was coming. So, I will say, I think 3 months would be great for seasons. I think that's a really good,
yeah.
That's not too short, but also, a year would probably be too long. People would lose interest after a while. But
yeah,
I think
that could be.
I think 3 months would be great, but for free-for-all specifically, I think those should be monthly. And the reason for that is because most people, I know a few, if you're playing Arena, you probably have at least 1 or 2 friends, if not 3, that you like to run with. So you like to play with either a full squad of 4 or at least 1 other person. Most people don't want to solo queue if they're really trying to get a super high rank. But if you're playing free-for-all, you don't need anybody but yourself. So any free time you have, you can play, and it's very, very hard to catch people who are in those really high ranks. But that problem could, of course, be solved if they use that proposed. Seasons. Well, the extension on the team aspect, but then also, if you added a 1 to 25 system, as I was proposing.
Gotcha.
That would fix that whole, you can't get away with people, because you can get away. I mean, I know whenever I had champion ranks, I haven't had a champion rank in months, because I just can't play as much anymore. And I haven't buckled down on the season, so I can make excuses about not being able to play as much. But also, I haven't buckled down on a specific playlist. I hop playlists too much, because you really have to play only one playlist and play it a lot if you want to get champion. But I would go to sleep, wake up, and I would lose 26 slots in the champion. And that feels bad, but that's because when I was asleep, people were playing. And I hate that they are now ranked higher than I am. And I didn't like that wasn't a true representation of, if you had that number 1 champion spot, you're not necessarily the actual best player in that playlist. And of course, I'm not saying that there's going to be a perfect, definitive, here's the undisputed best player in this playlist. I don't know that any ranking system could truly prove that. But I think
you can get as damn close as possible.
Yeah, you can definitely get closer than who plays more.
Yeah. And again, guys, it all comes back to the sort of social aspect of things. Your casual gamer wouldn't want to have their rank reset every month if they mostly play social, but sometimes want to peek into the competitive side. So having it reset every 3 months gives everyone a much bigger time frame, and it just makes competitive healthy overall, I think. The next thing we're going to talk about is the population of Halo 5 as a whole. And because the population is kind of not where it's supposed to be, I think we can all agree. A lot of people have been complaining about going up against teams as a solo queuer. How, if you go in solo, you could get matched up against a team of 4 and you've got 3 other randoms. So what do you think about this Proximitty? I mean, if the populations are higher, if they're better, healthier, can 343 design the game in a way that it matches teams up? Like four people going into Team Slayer will match up against another 4. I think you were telling me about team rank and solo rank. So how do you feel about those?
Well, as you mentioned, and you've said it multiple times when setting me up for this question, it's definitely dependent on the population. If there's a low pop, then it really sucks to be solo queuing and matching other teams, but it's either doing that or waiting for 45 minutes before you get a match, So, which one would you really prefer? I don't know. It probably goes person by person for that. But if you do have the population to support it, I would propose taking some notes from Call of Duty Black Ops 2 and their league play system. I'm assuming most of you probably didn't play it, but I was a total sweat in that game as well. So the way they had that set up, they had the same tiers as the Halo 5 rank system, where they had bronze, gold, silver, all that stuff, and then their highest thing was the Master Division. But here was what was really cool about it. If you entered the league play solo, it was one playlist, but if you played it by yourself or with anything under a team of 4, you had to enter it solo. and you had your own individual solo rank. You had 5 placement matches, and you got put into a division. And then every single time you played by yourself, you would rank up or down. But then if you played with a whole group of 4, they would enter that, and you have to name your team, which is those 4 specific players, and then you would be ranked as a team. And I love that because you wanted to grind by yourself, great. It doesn't affect your overall team rank. If you have a preferred group of 4 that you play with, you can reserve, that rank to when you're just playing with them. And then at the end of the season, whatever your final placing was for that season, you got that emblem for the tier that you ended with next to your gamer tag, and then it also said, the number that you were, and it would tell you if you got in solo or with the team, and if it was with your team, then it would put the team name. And I love that about it. I think if they could just adopt that exact idea, I would just mimic that, just every single piece of it, because I love that it gives you kind of a little bit more incentive to grind for the rank because, now you'll have this cool looking thing next to your gamer tag, and that's something people would like to have. That keeps people interested in competitive. And then you have the solo or the team, which is just really great because now if you're solo queuing, you will not match a full team of 4. It would not be allowed. And then if you played with a team of 4, you would only match other teams of 4. So that was a beautiful thing, and I really, really liked it.
I think it was healthy for the overall game as well. And if you guys don't know, I actually used to be pretty competitive in League of Legends, right? I would ball ass as Urgot. If you check the first video on my channel, it's a video about Urgot, right? And so League of Legends, something about that game got me into it really competitively, and part of it was that I had a solo rank and a team rank, and my highest rank in solo League of Legends was Diamond 4, and I was very proud of that. After that season ended, whenever I get into a game, I have this diamond border around it, and it looks flashy, it looks nice. It's like, damn, you were in Diamond, son. Like you kicked ass. And so another thing I think that Halo 5 doesn't have, that Halo 6 needs to have, is kind of that bragging right, that sort of flair that you can show off to people, when you check out their service record. And again, this ties in with the UI, right? So the UI has to be such that it supports this sort of flair, this boast, like, oh shit, you were a #1 champion, like you get this big flaming emblem when someone checks out, your service record, and you're like, god damn, this guy is good, So I think giving players more flair, more rewards for getting those good ranks, more incentive to get those good ranks can only do well for competitive Halo and eSports as well, and getting the general population into it. And that also ties in with the rec system and armor, right? Maybe there's like each season there's, if you get to a certain rank, you will unlock this set of armor that, let's say you have to get to Onyx in season 1, that's the only way to get this armor. So any time someone wears that armor, it's like they got to Onyx, they're actually pretty good. So again, it can tie into all sorts of different stuff like that to get more people into it. And I think Proximity, you were the other day we were talking about how it could also have better promotion, like on the Xbox main menu. When Halo 6 launches, always have some sort of little bubble on the side promoting, the latest eSports news or the games. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I think, recently they've been highlighting the match of the week for HCS, which I think is great. They put a picture of 2 of the pros from each of the teams that they're highlighting that week, and that's a good thing to get people aware. I'm sure there's had to have been a pretty solid amount of people that have been so compelled to check it out after seeing that. Gotten a few people interested at least. And, since Microsoft is so affiliated with Halo, I think even at the Xbox dashboard, that should be like Xbox's baby. Like, Halo's kind of always been Xbox's baby, but I think they should milk it. If they want the competitive scene to be huge, they need to shove it down people's throats, because not enough people care, I don't think. And I don't think enough people are... not too rough, but...
My throat is a little gentle, as long as it's like this is a nice pill you got here. Maybe I'll swallow it.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, you want, I don't know.
Here's your competitive Halo. Take it.
But they could say something like, tune in to the competitive Halo stream and earn a free month of Xbox Gold. that's nothing to them.
Or
and
rec
just
packs
promotional things like that.
Whatever. That's a great
Well, I'm talking
idea.
about trying to appeal to people that don't play Halo. Rec packs are great, but for the people who... stick around, and obviously you pop them up at the end of every match or something, or not, has to be like one code. You don't want to give away too many months of gold, but you want people to stick around and watch a little bit, and then I think, even if you get just a few hundred, maybe 1,000 people interested, that's beneficial, and you can do that for every single time. They stream the pro league matches, like 2 or 3 nights out of the week or something, or maybe it's 1 night of the week. I'm not really sure if I'm being honest, but yeah, I think every single week they could do it and constantly get people interested and make messages on the dashboard. I think putting that and just giving people that idea, exposing it to people that might not look right,
Promotion. And also the idea of, let's say the rec system is kept for Halo 6. The idea of check out the stream, get a free gold pack or silver pack. Then it's like, oh, okay, I'll check out the stream. And then, people can get into it that way as well. So I think bottom line is Halo's eSports and competitive gaming needs some more promotion from Xbox and Microsoft and all that to really get it to take off. And remember, guys, 2015, esports generated $325 million of revenue, and that's only going to get bigger each year afterwards. So Halo really needs to get a piece of this. And just 2 more other points that we have. Proximitty was talking about the idea of small, maybe monthly or weekend tournaments that anybody can enter in and maybe have a shot at $500 or a limited edition copy of the game or something. How do you feel about those type of tournaments, Proximitty?
Well, as you mentioned, that was something I brought up. I think that would be amazing. They could do it monthly. They could do it to close out every season. They could do it every week, if they want to get real crazy. And it doesn't have to be major prizes. It could be a $500 prize pool, as you mentioned, which is pocket change to Microsoft. It's less than pocket change to Microsoft.
Yeah.
It would cost them nothing. So that would be a really great way to keep people interested and competitive and always have them, really grinding, because the complacency factor is something that exists right now where you're unable to get deranked. If you set a goal for yourself where you go, I'm gonna get out of the current division I'm in, whatever division it might be, and I just want to get up to the next one. Because when the next season comes around, you will place closer to that season or that tier that you were in, that division, because it takes into account the previous placings you had. So if you work your way up to Diamond, you're very likely to get Diamond the next season. So you might want to take it one step at a time, which is probably a good way to get better. But you have that complacency once you earn it. So now you might lose that complacency if there's something on the line towards the end or something that's worth getting better for and continuing to grind, which would, of course, nurture the competitive scene.
I agree. And it doesn't even have to be money, like just Halo merchandise and stuff, action figures, exclusive armor. Again, there's so much armor in Halo 5, why not make some of it exclusive so, people have to grind for that. And we're talking about Halo 6, but the same thing kind of applies. So, offering these smaller tournaments for a not so hardcore competitive gamer like Proximitty, but, someone who's just kind of slowly getting into it might see this type of tournament and be like, oh, hell, maybe I should just practice this game. Maybe I should just play this game and get really good at it. And I think that serves as a really good motivation. And, for Microsoft and 343 to take advantage of that, oh, baby, you've been making so much money and getting so many people playing the game. It'd be crazy. And one last point. I have noticed, as I've been playing solo queue Halo 5, that there is not nearly enough shit talking. And I don't know why, but it's just not there anymore. And it's a part of the whole, I'm better than you, you suck kind of thing that any sort of competitive sport is always about. It's about being able to brag, and especially with online gaming, it's like, man, fuck you, you're gonna lose, you're going down. Oh, what? Fuck you, you're gonna lose, you're going down. And it's like that sort of attitude, sometimes it can be toxic, but a lot of times it can also do good. It can also get people like really into it, and sometimes afterwards you're like, oh man, it's being kind of a dick, maybe, let's play together, you were pretty good, that can create a lot of unique relationships as well. So I think the effort should be made for Halo 6 to have more interaction between teams, however that works. I've just noticed it not as much, and maybe that has to do with, again, population and how teams are being matched up, that when solo queue players go into a ranked playlist, that they might get matched up with 2 people that are on a team in a party, and now they can't talk and the random doesn't have a mic. So again, it can come back to the population numbers and all that, and just stimulating this sort of competitive edge between people.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us can probably empathize with what I'm about to say, but when I first got into online gaming, I was pretty, I was just kind of like weaning myself into it. Then I started getting shit talked now and then. This is back in like Halo 3 when I got my own Xbox and I could play online back in 2008. And I was pretty. I was like 14, and I didn't swear too much, and it didn't take long before I had a potty mouth, and I just get online, try to play with my friends, and some kid would come in and start saying nasty shit about my mom, and then we'd get into it, but it was fun and it was always interesting, and you can say what you will about trash talk and say what you don't like and this and that, but people like drama. Everybody does to a degree, and if you don't believe me, just look at the Act Man making videos trying to expose 343. No, I'm joking. But
exposed.
That's right. No, just people enjoy, when you have that incentive to kind of like kick somebody's ass in game and then go teabag them and shoot their body. It's a very satisfying feeling. And then they come back and do back to you, and you get off, and then you shoot the guy messages afterwards, and say nasty shit about his mom. It goes back to that. But
sometimes it can be toxic and bad, but a lot of times it's good.
Yeah, it makes it interesting.
Just give players the ability, create the matchmaking such a way that, teams get matched up against teams, and solo queue players can go in and again, talk with mics and meet new people and do all that sort of that stuff.
Actually, one more comment on the shit-talking side of things. I actually want to point this out. I keep up somewhat with the Call of Duty competitive. I used to compete in Call of Duty as well. So I still look up, I look over to it sometimes and just see what's going on, but in recent days, the fans of Call of Duty competitive have been complaining that all the COD pros just get along too well now. In the Halo scene, if you keep up with HCS, you have CLG, which are like, the dudes are pretty cocky on that team, but they're the undisputed best team in the game. And that makes it where it's interesting because everybody is either on the side of CLG, like, yeah, they're the best, you can't beat them. And then there's the other people who are like, oh, but these guys are coming out, they're going to do it. And then you go over to Call of Duty and everybody's just like, good game, man, good game, it's fun. And so these people that like Call of Duty are complaining that it's just boring. Everybody's a fan of everybody. They like every team, and so they don't really care. They're pretty indifferent on who wins the event. And you don't want that. You want to have that quote-unquote villain team or that, villainous evil team because you need to have that. It's, same thing with real sports. You always have a team that you dislike. Rivalries are important. You need to have that sort of conflict, that interest.
Yeah,
and I think you can have that on a small scale with shit talking prior to the game. I think that's something that we should see more of.
Think of like the New England Patriots, right? For American football, they're always with the best win record. They got the best win record in the NFL history, and so like whenever someone beats them, it's like, fuck you, Patriots, yeah, Seahawks. Same thing. So like stimulating these sort of rivalries, and it's I have a respect for the Patriots, no doubt. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, yeah, we can get into it. I can talk shit to 49ers fans, but we can still have like a mutual respect at the end of the day and not go and beat the shit out of each other, kind of thing.
Right, because at the end of the day, you both love football, and at the end of the day, we both love Halo. You don't have to agree on everything.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yes.
All right, guys. So that was just a bunch of ideas we had for how Halo 6 can dominate competitive gaming, and I think it's a really important issue that needs to be tackled with Halo 6 because the competitive eSports market is, it is big money there, guys. There's a reason Halo 5, went balls to the walls with the competitive design and everything. So it's really important that 343 takes all these things into consideration when crafting Halo 6 because that will make the game more healthy, more competitive, and overall make more money. And then everyone's happy and everyone wins. So make sure you guys go check out Proximitty. This guy is a sweat legend. He will teach you how to be good at the game, whether you want to or not. I highly recommend you go to his channel, watch his videos, and subscribe to him because he is the sweat lord.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah. I've never called someone a sweat lord before, but
I've never been called a sweat lord before, but I like it.
I think it's a compliment. It sounds like a compliment.
I think because I'm aware of how competitive natured I am, I've been told that my whole life. I just like winning,
Yeah,
so,
and who doesn't?
Yeah, when you learn a game, they teach you the rules and how to win. They don't teach you how to lose. That's something I've always taken. My dad used to say that, and I apply it to my life. I like winning.
Yeah, who doesn't? So go subscribe to him and check out the Chaotix Gaming while you're at it. All right, Proximity. I just want to say thanks for coming on and talking about this. I really do appreciate you doing that and your opinion as a competitive Halo fan. And I think both of us came up with some really good ideas today that can really change Halo 6 and competitive Halo for the better.
I really appreciate you having me on, man. I'm glad that you thought of me when thinking of somebody to bring on for this video, even if it's just because I'm a sweat lord. I really appreciate it. I love your videos. I'm glad I can be a part of one.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys. That's all we got for today. This is the Act Proximity signing out. Peace!